Robert Downey Jr. is now one of the most popular and well-paid actors on the planet, thanks in no small part to his portrayal of the now iconic Iron Man, aka Tony Stark, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. His journey to the role and as the character has been an extremely interesting one, and in this documentary, we'll take you on that journey. Robert Downey Jr. reportedly has a net worth in excess of $300 million. He's a bona fide A-lister and the flagship star of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the highest-grossing movie franchise in the history of cinema. He's the highest-paid actor in the franchise, having been paid more than $200 million by Marvel Studios in his 10 years with them. Given his looks, his likable persona, his natural talent, and the fact his family has show business in their genes, Robert Downey Jr.'s path to stardom was inevitable. But to say it's been an easy ride would be an outright lie. His father is, of course, retired actor, director, producer, writer, and cinematographer Robert Downey Sr., and his late mother, Elsie Ann, was an actress who appeared in Downey Sr.'s films. In spite of all that, he really didn't have the childhood you might imagine him having. Far from it, in fact. Downey Jr. was born in New York City in 1965, and he's described himself as having been surrounded by drugs as a youngster, an experience that would go on to shape a large chunk of his adult life, thanks largely to the fact that Downey Sr. was a drug addict. His father actually allowed Downey to use marijuana when he was as young as 6 years old. Yeah, 6 years of age. And although their mutual drug use did actually work in strengthening their father-son bond, it's something Downey Sr. has since expressed a lot of regret about, as he should. Downey Jr. has also said it was his father's way of trying to express his love for me in the only way he knew how. But it was no surprise that it would lead to him ending up spending every night abusing alcohol and making 1,000 phone calls in pursuit of drugs. His first acting roles were minor ones in his father's movies, including playing a sick puppy in 1970's absurdist comedy movie Pound, and playing a Quasimodo-like child in 1972's acid western movie Greaser's Palace. At the age of 10, he found himself living in England, where he studied classical ballet as part of a larger curriculum. As a teenager back in the States, he attended the Stage Door Manor Performing Arts Training Center in upstate New York, but when his parents divorced in 1978, he moved to California with his father. In 1982, he dropped out of Santa Monica High School and moved back to New York to pursue a full-time career in acting. And after later moving to Hollywood for 3 years, he was roommates with someone he'd later share the screen with in the form of Kiefer Sutherland. In spite of the odds that came with his ongoing addiction to drugs and alcohol, Downey Jr. appeared in dozens of extremely popular and successful movies, including 1985's Weird Science, 1980's Air America, 1992's Chaplin, for which he was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor, and 1994's Natural Born Killers. In '96, however, Downey Jr.'s career troubles began. The actor was arrested countless times on charges related to drugs, including cocaine, heroin, and marijuana, and he went through several drug treatment programs unsuccessfully. In 1999, he told a judge, "It's like I have a shotgun in my mouth, and I've got my finger on the trigger, and I like the taste of the gunmetal." Whoa. That's intense. He was also arrested in 1996 for possessing an unloaded .357 Magnum handgun while he was speeding down Sunset Boulevard. And a month after that, while on parole, he trespassed into a neighbor's home while under the influence of a controlled substance and fell asleep in one of the beds. Forget the roles he took in the 90s, his life was like a crazy movie. Due to his actions, Robert received 3 years of probation and was ordered to undergo compulsory drug testing. Up until 2001, he repeatedly found himself in trouble for a variety of reasons, and was in a very bad way, which was epitomized when a Los Angeles police officer found him wandering barefoot in Culver City while under the influence of cocaine. At the time, the actor was a main character on the Fox network show Ally McBeal. That arrest resulted in producer David E. Kelley and other Ally McBeal executives ordering last-minute rewrites and reshoots, and they fired him from the show, in spite of the fact that Downey Jr.'s character had resuscitated its ratings. In 2001, after an extremely troubled 5 years, Downey Jr. was finally ready to work toward a full recovery from drugs and rebuild his career, and he spent the 6 years leading up to 2007 doing exactly that. His first acting job after rehab was in Elton John's I Want Love music video, in which Downey Jr. lip-synced the words. He was praised for his understated performance in the video and looked in good health. Downey Jr. was back. He was able to return to the big screen in 2003 thanks to Mel Gibson, who had been a close friend of Downey Jr. since they appeared in Air America together. Gibson paid his insurance bond for the 2003 film The Singing Detective, which made it possible for Downey Jr. to appear in the movie. The movie was critically panned, but Downey Jr.'s performance was lauded, and it was widely accepted that he had returned to form and was ready for big roles. He went on to appear in a number of high-profile movies with varying degrees of commercial and critical success, including 2003's Gothika, 2005's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, 2006's A Scanner Darkly, and 2007's Zodiac. But it was 2008 when he would be handed his career-defining role. Entertainment businessman David Maisel had approached Avi Arad, the chief creative officer of Marvel Entertainment, regarding the possibility of earning Marvel more for money their movies, which were at the time being produced by a variety of movie studios, who were all lapping up the profits from the likes of Blade, the X-Men, and Spider-Man. Their meeting led to the formation of Marvel Studios, and the company set about creating a new cinematic universe. After brainstorming a number of ideas, it was decided that the first movie in the franchise would be an origin movie for Iron Man, a then B-list Marvel superhero who represented something of a risk for the newly formed studio. Jon Favreau was attached to direct, and several actors were considered, or at least rumored, to play the titular role of Tony Stark, including Tom Cruise, who had famously wanted to play the character back in the 90s and even commissioned a script that was co-written by Stan Lee. Nicolas Cage, Timothy Olyphant, Clive Owen, Leonardo DiCaprio, Sam Rockwell, and Wolverine himself, Hugh Jackman, who was actually offered the role but turned it down. Eventually, Favreau chose Downey Jr., who was already a friend of his and who was actually a fan of the Iron Man comics, because he felt the actor's past made him an appropriate choice for the part. Like those of Tony Stark, both the ups and downs of Downey Jr.'s life had been far from private, and Favreau felt he could play Stark perfectly as a likable jerk, which is exactly what Tony Stark is. The director said the best and worst moments of Robert's life have been in the public eye. He had to find an inner balance to overcome obstacles that went far beyond his career. That is Tony Stark. Favreau actually faced tough opposition from Marvel when it came to casting Downey, thanks largely to the actor's past personal problems, but he wouldn't take no for an answer, saying it was my job as a director to show that it was the best choice creatively. Everyone knew he was talented, and certainly by studying the Iron Man role and developing that script, I realized that the character seemed to line up with Robert in all the good and bad ways. Production started in March of 2007 and concluded in June of the same year, and it was released just less than a year later in May of 2008. The result was a huge commercial and critical success, as the movie grossed $585 million worldwide, with Downey Jr.'s performance earning praise from critics and fans alike all around the globe. He was paid $500,000 up front, and it's estimated that he earned around $2 million in total after getting his share of the profits. The movie worked from an outline and rehearsals rather than from a script, and it hit the ground running immediately, telling us absolutely everything we needed to know about Tony Stark in less than 2 minutes. He was quick-witted, intelligent, arrogant, charismatic, charming, a Lothario, a womanizer, narcissistic, and fearless in an oblivious way. The first shot we ever saw of him was with a drink in his hand, which was indicative of arguably the most famous Iron Man story from the comic books, Demon in a Bottle. Although the fact that dark story was never explored probably contributed to the character's mainstream popularity in the end. We didn't initially know if we wanted to shake his hand, kiss him, or punch him square in the jaw, but the character launched Robert Downey Jr. back into superstardom while taking Marvel movies to never-before-seen levels in terms of quality. The role of Tony Stark came naturally to Downey Jr. because, as unbelievably talented as he undoubtedly is, he's essentially playing an exaggerated version of himself. But what he's done with the character since would have seemed unimaginable back in 2008. After a very small cameo in the final scene of The Incredible Hulk later that same year, the second Iron Man movie, Iron Man 2, was released in May of 2010. Downey Jr. had started taking the physical demands of playing a superhero more seriously, and in preparation for Iron Man 2, he ate a high-protein diet of 2,500 to 3,200 calories a day, which probably meant he was producing enough methane to power one of Tony Stark's suits, but that's another story. He also practiced yoga and kung fu, and he worked with personal trainer Brad Bowes during 90-minute sessions 3 or 4 days a week. Bowes described the fitness regimen as Rocky IV meets modern technology, and the exercises included doing things like flipping SUV tires. Since then, Downey Jr. has managed to maintain his great shape, even now that he's 53 years of age, to keep Tony Stark looking good on the big screen. Iron Man 2 wasn't as critically well received as Iron Man, but Downey Jr.'s performance was as revered as his first outing as Stark, and the movie grossed even more than Iron Man, with $624 million worth of box office tickets being sold. His salary increased dramatically for the sequel, as he earned $10 million up front and approximately $13 million after his share of the profits came into play. Downey Jr.'s influence behind the scenes was already coming into play, at least if Terrence Howard is to be believed. Howard, who helped Downey Jr. land the role of Tony Stark in the first place, was replaced as James War Machine Rhodes by Don Cheadle for the movie, and he claims it's because his agreed salary was reduced dramatically, with Downey Jr. taking the money that was supposed to go to him and pushing him out. 2012's The Avengers came next, and while Downey Jr. was already the highest-paid star of the movie in terms of his upfront payment of $10 million, the huge profits it brought in ramped his overall earnings up to around $40 million. The first MCU ensemble movie grossed a whopping worldwide total of just over $1.5 billion, making it the highest-grossing movie of the year, and Downey Jr.'s performance was praised as one of the movie's highlights, which was no mean feat given the company that he was in. Iron Man 3 came next in 2013, and it was undoubtedly the most divisive MCU movie Downey Jr. has appeared in. That being said, Downey Jr.'s performance was again praised, and the movie earned an incredibly impressive $1.2 billion, thanks in no small part to Downey Jr.'s popularity. And his upfront earnings of $10 million were supplemented with a further $22 million after his share of the profits came through. Next up was 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron, another movie that grossed more than $1 billion, $1.4 billion in this case, and Downey earned $10 million up front again, plus another $25 from the box office profits. It was by far the poorest Avengers movie to date, but Downey Jr. was praised as usual, although probably not to the same extent as his previous performances. His next performance was a little bit different to the others. It would be the first movie, aside from The Incredible Hulk when he merely cameoed, that Robert Downey Jr. would appear in the MCU without being the headline star. We are, of course, talking about 2016's Captain America: Civil War, in which Tony Stark was actually an antagonist of sorts, at least for part of the movie, but it didn't prevent it from being incredibly successful as usual. It grossed over $1.1 billion worldwide, making it the second MCU movie to be the highest-grossing movie worldwide in its year of release. Downey Jr. was paid a whopping $40 million up front, more than even Chris Evans, who played the title character, and after profits and additional add-ons, his earnings came to almost $64 million. While he wasn't quite as likable in Civil War as he was in previous movies, with some arguing Tony Stark was behaving a little out of character, Downey Jr. still put in a great performance, and his inclusion was undoubtedly the movie's biggest draw. He then appeared in 2017's Spider-Man: Homecoming for a grand total of around 8 minutes, and it's estimated that he made around $15 million for what was essentially nothing more than an extended cameo. Tom Holland wasn't exactly a huge name at the time of Homecoming's release, so Downey Jr.'s inclusion in the cast added a little star power to that movie, and it seemed to work, as it grossed $880 million worldwide. Next up for Downey Jr., of course, came this year's epic Avengers Infinity War, the beginning of the culmination of everything that we've seen so far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The movie had one of the largest, most impressive ensemble casts ever assembled, and RDJ was still the headline star. Infinity War was part of Downey Jr.'s original contract, which saw him being paid $10 million per movie up front, but it's hard to believe that would have been the case here. It's actually been rumored that, all things considered, he may have taken in as much as $200 million from the third Avengers movie, though the exact amount hasn't been confirmed. It's the third MCU installment to be the highest-grossing movie of its respective year of release, taking in a gargantuan $2 billion at the global box office, and although 2018 isn't over yet, it's hard to see anything beating it as the year draws to a close. Infinity War juggled a dizzying array of characters, and Robert Downey Jr. arguably outshined all of them, except maybe Josh Brolin, who played the prune-chinned Mad Titan Thanos. His character was the only one to really lay a meaningful glove on Thanos before Thor smashed Stormbreaker through his chest at the movie's climax, and it was one of RDJ's most emotional performances as Tony Stark to date. He'll return in next year's as-yet-untitled fourth Avengers movie, but what will happen after that remains to be seen. His contract with Marvel Studios ends with Avengers 4, and it's largely expected that Downey Jr.'s time as the MCU's central character will be coming to an end, with the likes of Captain Marvel, Black Panther, Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange taking over on that front. If the movie is Downey Jr.'s MCU swan song, he's been an incredible servant to the franchise, and we can undoubtedly expect him to depart in spectacularly heroic circumstances, and no doubt with an absolutely iconic performance that will earn him a killing. However, if he isn't killed off completely, there's every chance he could remain on board going forward to make the occasional Spider-Man Homecoming-esque cameo. That's something we'll simply have to wait to find out about, but nobody would complain if Downey Jr. continued to appear in the MCU for the foreseeable future, even if at the age of 53 he is, by his own admission, getting on a little bit. All things considered, Downey Jr. has made 9 appearances as Tony Stark in the last decade, winning a Kids' Choice Award, an MTV Movie Award, 5 People's Choice Awards, 2 Saturn Awards, and 2 Teen Choice Awards in the process, and it's a shame he hasn't at least been nominated for the more prestigious awards, because his Tony Stark has been as iconic as he is brilliant. In that time, he's also appeared in the likes of 2009's Sherlock Holmes and its 2011 sequel, 2014's Chef and the Judge, and he's set to take on the role of the titular character in 2020's The Voyage of Dr. Dolittle. So it's safe to say he's not going anywhere anytime soon, and that spectacular career resurrection is undoubtedly thanks largely to his fantastic stint as the Invincible Iron Man. He actually won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Motion Picture Musical or Comedy in Sherlock Holmes. And we can certainly see more rewards for excellence in his acting future. With his role in Sherlock Holmes, we saw Downey Jr. could lead more than just one successful multi-film franchise. In the time since Downey Jr. took on the role of Tony Stark, countless other major actors have portrayed the likes of Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Thor, Captain America, Wolverine, Green Lantern, Deadpool, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Black Panther, Ghost Rider, Aquaman, The Flash, the Hulk, Doctor Strange, and an abundance of other iconic superheroes on the big screen. And none have had the same impact as Iron Man, in spite of the efforts of actors of the caliber of Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Hugh Jackman, Mark Ruffalo, Benedict Cumberbatch, Chadwick Boseman, and Nicolas Cage. Given that Iron Man was nowhere near as popular as the majority of those characters before getting his own movie in 2008, Downey Jr. deserves a heck of a lot of credit for what he's done with him. He completely changed the perception of a character who was to Spider-Man what Aquaman is to Batman and Superman in the world of DC, lifting the armored superheroes to A-list status. It would be fantastic to see more famous Iron Man stories on the big screen. The aforementioned Demon in a Bottle arc would make for a great movie, especially now that R-rated comic book movies are becoming more popular, for example. The Armor Wars arc on the big screen would also be absolutely incredible. It saw the villainous Spy Master stealing Stark's technology, selling it to every Marvel villain he can, and countless bad guys wearing their own Iron Man armor as a result. Tony Stark's technology was being used to kill, not for the first time, and he took it very personally. The Mask in the Iron Man arc saw Stark's armors becoming sentient and turning against him, which is very much a Frankenstein story, and one that would make a fantastic movie. And if Dr. Doom is ever brought over to the MCU, and we really, really hope the iconic Marvel villain is, the Doom Quest story in which Iron Man and Doom get sent back in time to medieval England would certainly offer something different to any comic book movie that came before it. Iron Man teamed up with King Arthur, and Doom teamed up with Morgan Le Fay for a showdown of epic proportions. Just imagine Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark in that awesome scenario. It would be unbelievably cool. That's just a few examples, but seriously, there really is a near limitless reservoir of amazing untapped Iron Man resources in the comics, and ideally, Downey Jr. would be the man to depict them on the big screen, should they ever get there. Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. It really is that simple. He genuinely acts like the genius, billionaire, playboy, and philanthropist in real-life interviews, and he's even turned up in character as Stark to visit children who needed cheering up, which always tends to work given how much kids love and idolize Iron Man, and it's hard to imagine anyone else ever playing the character on the big screen. If indeed another actor does have the guts to step into RDJ's boots, whether that be in the MCU or a rebooted franchise going forward, first of all, we'd want to wish them the best of luck and say well done for daring to do so. But the fact is, they'd be fighting a major uphill battle to win audiences over, given Downey Jr.'s popularity amongst a fandom that's notoriously one of the most critical and hardest to please on the planet. All that being said, although he's created a happy family life for himself, his wife, and his children, done a huge amount of work for charity, and accomplished a lot in his acting career, especially as Tony Stark in the MCU, beating his demons will still arguably be the most super-heroic thing he'll ever do in life. And well done, RDJ, for doing it. You are Iron Man. Have you enjoyed Robert Downey Jr.'s time as Tony Stark in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? What did you think of our documentary about it? Give us your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to CBR for more great videos like this one. And be warned, if you don't, we have a Hulk. Catch you later.